Hi, welcome to KieLive series number 9. Hi, Porcelli. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening.
Hi, Karina. How are you? Good morning, guys.
Or evening or
Oh,
afternoon,
yeah,
it
that's true.
depends, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah, I'm pretty excited for our live today, where we will talk about multiplying architecture. Is this a new concept, Alex, that the Key Group is bringing on the software world? Or is it
Um,
just like, what is your opinion on it?
well, I have a lot of opinion on that, but I think the best person to answer today gonna be Eder, our guest.
Oh, Eder is a principal engineer. He works at Red Hat for a long time already, and he's also a Java champion, and he has a chair at the QCon organization. So let's welcome Eder. Hello, Eder. Welcome, and thanks for
Hello.
accepting our invite to be here today.
Yeah, thank you for inviting Karina and Alex. It's a pleasure to be here.
Eder, is this multiplying architecture? Is this like a new concept in the architectural world?
Yes, it's a new concept that we developed among the years because our group is working with tooling for especially the web tooling to write tools for the web for a long time. And since before I joined Red Hat, I think Alex and Michael and the rest of the group started this like 2011 or 12. And I joined Red Hat in 2014. And since then,
2014?
yes, it's a long
Been a
time.
while.
Yeah, time flies. Yeah, and I'm working with tooling in the web group, in the web tooling group since then.
Yeah, that's awesome. But before we get more into it, I'm really curious about what you tell us today about this architecture. Let's get back. Karina mentioned that you are Java champion. Can you tell more about this?
Yes, I am a Java champion since I think 2016 or 17. Was a dream that I have since my whole life. I am a big fan of the big Java champions group that I have in Brazil, especially Bruno Souza, and I'm following him since then. And this is a really nice thing to be involved in the community and to be evangelizing Java, and especially to be advocate for the community. But in Java Champions Group, we also plays a role that we try to. There's two sides of the coin. One is to evangelize the Java features, new features for the community, and also get involved with Java development. This we used to do in a Soul Java group because we have a chart in JCP. So Java is I think is the biggest user group. Karina is now talking with this. This is one of the biggest user group in Brazil, and I am in one branch of the Sojava. The Sojava Campinas is my hometown in Brazil, and it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be a Java champion. It's something for me that's really special. It's something that I achieved some years ago, but since then I didn't even realize how it's cool to be that, because especially for me, when I attend for the conference, when I look for the other Java champions, I feel a little like an imposter, like I don't belong for this group, because it's so great people and a lot of nice and bright minds that move Java's forward.
Yeah, but that has to be with the imposter syndrome, because you're actually pretty good, not only on coding, but actually on contributing to the community.
Yep.
So it's pretty nice.
And I added to, we are very lucky in the Q community because we not have one Java champion. We have two Java champions in our group.
Yeah, we have Mario Fusco. Mario is before me. I think he's 2014 or 13, but he's a Java champion.
That's pretty exciting. And Eder, what about the? Oh my God, I blanked.
Why Karina blanked? I have more question. Like, you have all these community involvement, and how you ended up working in Red Hat and contributed to the Key Group.
Yeah, that's a fun question, because I am. It's a little different, my story, because I have a backend, 100% backend background, and I end up working at Red Hat with tooling. In Alex invited, but the thing is that I used it to use Drools in the community. And then this is how the community works. Then I have involved the project. The project solved special feat for us because we used to work in. I used to work for as a consultant for a big bank in Brazil, and this bank has a lot of rules for the contability accountant. And in Brazil, accountant is really complicated and changed the rules a lot. And Drools was a perfect use case to put all these business logic related to accountancy on Drools engine. Then you saw the architecture that I have some crazy ideas, and I got creative with my team, and we end up developing a nice web UI for this to do some special things that at the time Drools project doesn't have. And then I meet Alex Porcelli in the community to present at the KeyCon this use case, how we are doing live updates, something that right now it's free with the Cogito, but once in time is a little harder to have this type of live reload of rules, that kind of stuff. And we ended up with a web-based solution, and then I get know Alex at KeyCon. I think it's KeyCon 13. Yeah, it's a long time ago. And then I know Alex and get involved with the project, and then Alex invited me to join Red Hat working in the web tools. It was a little, sorry to speak too much. It's a little complicated. It's a little weird for me to become a web developer, but the thing is, doing proper web development, like you see in my talk, is a little more complicated than backend developers realize it. Yeah, it's a little funky how to do real architectures in the web development, and this is mostly what I will talk in the presentation.
I'm pretty curious to see and learn about it. And one thing, just branching out from your comment, is that many people ask me, how can I get started on the open source world? How can I start contributing? How can I get involved? How can I get into Red Hat, for example? So this is a pretty good example, like real example of someone who actually started by contributing to a project that he was involved with. And then he just got in touch with the community itself, which led him to work within Red Hat. So that's a pretty good story. I didn't know your background.
Yeah. Mostly I asked the right questions for the tooling team. Why you don't do this? Why you don't do that? I'm fixing the same problem there. And in the end, the funny story is that most of my team that used to work in this project now is working with us on tooling. We have Paulo, Guilherme, Thiago that is working. Yeah, I bring them together. Yeah, my gang.
Okay. Alex, what do you think about us learning more about the multiplying architecture? And at the end, we can come and just drop a lot of questions on Eder.
That's what I was about to say, that now with all this introduction to Eder and his background, I'm really curious to know and learn more about this architecture.
So let's get started. Eder, people can already see your screen.
Yeah, I was about to ask that, but things work magically, right?
Yes, it does. You only have to worry about presenting.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm here. First, thank you for coming, and thank you if you're watching this. After, this is a pleasure to be here and talk about this. This multiplying architecture is something that we are working on in the latest months. We in our team, and I'm really proud of this work that I think really fit well, perfect in the niche space. And also, it's a good showcase for me is how to be effective and in architecture, how to be pragmatic and build architecture around your business use case. And I hope to share you guys about this. First is that, as I said, besides being on backend development, I have to confess that, in my opinion, we live in a world where the web technologies will dominate and are dominating the software development. The web development right now is the default choice for most of the application. The web technologies become more and more available everywhere, and especially because they have a great foundation. If you think about HTML and JavaScript, some people are complaining about JavaScript. I will approach this later, and about CSS and about all the standards regarding accessibility, regarding the patterns, and regarding proper software architecture. They built a huge well foundation for web technology. And some years ago, there was a lot of criticism against JavaScript ecosystem because the JavaScript ecosystem was growing too fast. And if you saw, even we spoke that about 3 years ago, Alex and I in Java 1 conference about how to taming this growing on technologies and frameworks. But now I understand that looking in the past is that this happens because the technologies was maturing and the frameworks were maturing and the standards were maturing as well. And one of the huge factors for this maturity, in my opinion, and that brings my love and joy working in web development is the popularity of TypeScript. Coming from a Java background, TypeScript was the first thing in web development that makes me feel the gap that I miss when developing Java. There is a proper type system. With JavaScript, you can have all the benefits of static type compiling and using almost JavaScript only as a medium. Is like this word is not best word right now because we have the assembly, but the JavaScript is just the language of the web, and it's like the assembly of the browsers and the web technologies. And TypeScript put a layer over that, giving us sanity, especially using something that I really consider as a key for professional software development. There's static type language and static typing, because they are the real tests for your application. Like it's important to have unit tests, important to have integration tests, but for me the most important test is tests related to the types and tests doing by the compiler. And this only happens when you have a proper type system in place. Also, this trend started some years ago, especially with the Chromium and Electron and PWA's application, but the browser are now everywhere. Most of the applications that you use right now that have the desktop application that actually runs a browser. And this means that the same technology that you can use in the web, you can use in the browser, and you can also use it on mobile application. So browser is everywhere, and browser brings all the web technologies behind them. We have the JavaScript and we have TypeScript. So the browsers are becoming the de facto standard for any application that have any graphical interface. And this is most of the applications that you use nowadays. And also, one thing for giving me a little more context is that the architectural landscape are changing a lot in the recent years. We have this trend of evolutionary architecture, where we can have the incremental guided change as the first principle across multiple dimensions. Like we need to be ready to write small things and evolve. Behind that, keeping the architectural patterns and standard that you define. We also have the merging of the microservices architecture, where you can have multiple services working together and collaborating for the solution. We also have becoming the stack to standard to have this serverless. More especially, I'm interested in having backend as a functions to do in the past. Technologies, this is something that I have to mention in all my talks, that technologies is a circle. We have this remote procedure call since AGB in the past, and now we have this as in a proper work using serverless, where you can have your backend as a services. This is an important requirement. And also another technology, another pattern, architectural pattern that I am really advocate is micro frontend, especially because they give the developers the ability to work just in the problem at hand, and the integration become part of the infrastructure level layer that we should receive for free from the framework. So we have this 4 trends in the that we need to cope in this new architecture. Is evolutionary, microservices, serverless with functions, and micro frontend. But the question is, why do my team and the tooling of RH and PAM and at Red Hat we need a new architecture? Because I work, as I told, with tooling. My team work with the tools, more or less is web tools. In the past we have also Eclipse tools, but now it's just web technologies. And besides all those patterns of the architecture, we have to figure out how to do tooling for the modern technologies and architecture, like englobe all the strengths of technology and bring these innovations that microservice, that evolution architecture, that serverless and micro frontends bring together for a tooling platform. A tooling platform, more or less, is we put graphical tooling and graphical editors to run in the web. This is more or less in a summary, in a tweet of what my team does. And we have 3 requirements basically that we want to tackle with this architecture. The first one is that we have to have multiple distributions. The main goal of the multiplying architecture is that we need to figure out how to create a tool that with the micro front end standard, like you work in a small context, in a small scenario, and after this, combining with what I said that the browser is everywhere, I want to have my code running in multiple platforms without realizing that my code is running there. It's like, this means like 0 changes in the code, and my code could run in the desktop, in the web, in the browser. We also want to do this because we want to minimize the code changes. I want to avoid feature flags. I want to avoid if I'm running inside the browser, do this feature. If I'm running in the desktop, do this feature. I hate this type of patterns, and I want to minimize the code changes. And I also, the third requirement that we have for this new architecture is that I want to be a bridge for all the technologies. Because I don't want to be opinionated about technologies. I am opinionated about the web. But besides that, the developers that wrote tools that runs over this platform, they could choose the technology that suits better this problem. This third requirement goes straight to the micro front ends, where you can have application running in React, side by side with application running in Angular, and both working in the same platform collaboratively. So we have these requirements before creating this architecture. We have to have multiple distributions, minimize code changes, and have being a bridge behind the platforms. But before talking about what we did, is like, what is software architecture for us, for our group? Architecture for us, the best definition, this comes from the design patterns book, from the Gang of 4, and also there is a mention of this quote from Ralph Johnson in this book here. This is a nice book that I'm reading right now. It's Fundamental of Software Architecture from Mike Richards and Neil Ford. Is that Ralph Johnson's statement that architecture is about the important stuff, whatever it is. So you take what is important for our domain and put them in the center of the architecture. And there where we figure out the concept of the multiplying architecture. What is the important abstraction for multiplier architecture? Is the abstraction. We want to put a layer over to isolate the channels. This is the first concept that we have for the core abstractions. What is the channel? The channel is the host environment. Could be a website, and could be a desktop application, could be a browser extension, could be a mobile, could be anywhere. The channel is one of the core abstractions for our multiplying architecture. The another one, I will go straight to the right, is the editor. And the editor is more or less what we do in BPMN and Dmn is graphical editors. The editor is a specialized type of graphical UI that is associated with a file, okay? Then we have the editor cousin, that is the view. What is the view? The view is just any web technology, any web UI, any HTML, CSS, and the JavaScript. So more or less, our abstraction is that the channel doesn't need to know the view and the editor that is running. And the view and the editor doesn't need to know is abstracted from the channel that's running. So we create a layer of abstraction of this core piece of technology. So you can swap any channel with any combination of the editors. And the central piece of this abstraction of the multiplying architecture is the envelope. The envelope is a creation for our group. We have multiple people behind this. But the most important is the architect, the Alex, myself, Thiago Bento, and Paulo. That was the leads on the foundation of this architecture. And the envelope is the abstraction layer that abstracts all the channels and all the views and all the editors. We will see in a minute how this is important, what cool things that you can do using this, and how these abstractions works in a diagram. You can see here that I have the box outside is the channel. The channel could be, in our case, if you just would code the desktop, or could be the browser. And the channel have his APIs, implements some services, and consumes the envelope. The envelope is at the box inside this, the channel, that abstract the channel from the editor or from the view. The channel talks in the envelope, and the envelope talks with the editor. So the editor doesn't know where it's running, and the channel doesn't know what is running inside that envelope. The channel only knows the envelope, and the editor only knows the envelope. And this is more or less what we have on the multiplier architecture in general. But this is a really powerful abstraction. I put a note there just to some of them is more familiar with the web development, that we put behind everything, we put an iframe. This could be a web component in future, but we are not there with the state, with the proper context isolation. So we put an iframe over this to block the context isolation and block the JavaScript context. So in order to create a context. So basically, multiplier architecture, we have three abstractions: the channel, the envelope, and the editor. And what is the advantage of having the envelope? With the envelope, we created now with the iframe, but this is just an implementation. The thing that I'm using iframes there, but we can use web components when they become the de facto standard supported by all the browsers. It's just we need context isolation. The code that runs inside the editor cannot break with the channel. For instance, if you have in a web application, you can have, using our technology, two envelopes with two editors side by side. One running Angular application and another one running a React application. Both could have dependency from jQuery in different versions. And this, if you put, as you know, some web, if you put everything in the same context, it will break. So one of the advantages of the envelope, and you took this inspiration from micro frontends technology, is to create a context isolation between the editor code and the hosting channel. Also, the envelope provides a huge feature for us, especially because we are a big group on Key, that we can have autonomous team. The team will only work on the editor without having to worry about where he will be displayed, because the envelope gives the abstraction from the channel. So as soon as the editor teams, for instance, I will take the Dmn team from Guilherme, he writes an editor, and we wrap this from the envelope, and it will be for free for them that you have this editor running on the multiple platforms. And same applies for the views, that is just pure HTML and CSS and JavaScript content. Also, this is more advantage of the micro frontends, patterns and architecture, that you can have independent release cycles. So we are able to update an editor without having to change the host application, because we have this layer that separates everything. So we can do a bump from version 1.3 from editor for 1.4 without having to worry about the environment. So everything becomes transparent. And the most important part for me, and this is the biggest advantage between traditional micro frontend approach for our envelope approach, is that we expose a type-safe communication. If you know a little bit about iframes and how micro frontend works, more or less you have only post-message communication. This means that you can only pass a key value in strings, and we are actually able to overlap this, as I told you. Abstractions is the most important thing for us. We are able to put an abstraction over the envelope where we can put a type-safe communication between the channels and the editors. This means that we'll know in compilation if you are breaking something. This is the most important thing to keep your developers safe. So with the envelope, we have most of the microphone advantage, with the plus of having this type-safe communication. And also when you go to a broader scope of multiplayer architecture, we will have this channel embeddability together. And let's talk about multiplayer architecture in practice. This is, I love examples, and this is a lot of talking about architecture stuff. Some people like, some people don't. Let's see how this works in practice. First, where multiplying is running and why multiplying was designed. Was designed to fit the needs of these projects. The popular jBPM project, the popular Drools project. jBPM is the BPM most popular in the market. Drools is the most popular Drools engine in the market, and Octoplanner is one of the most popular planners engine. They all have the requirements of having graphical editors, and we need graphical editor everywhere. And Cogito is our new effort to put the runtimes of Drools and jBPM and Octoplanner in more a cloud-friendly vault. So we have all these requirements. We want to build tooling for this. And I told you that one of the goals for our architecture is to be able to put these editors everywhere. And we are actually able to do this with extreme success that we show you in the demo. We are able to put the same editor running inside the VSCode code, inside the GitHub Chrome extension, inside the online editor, and inside the browser. Let's see this, how this works in a demo. I think it will be nicer. First, I will start with a VSCode code. How you install our extensions. You can go here and go to the extension. You type, let me close this. You type BPMN. Ours is the first BPMN extension in the market. And you also, or either put Dmn, and here you can have our Dmn, and also the first one in our result search. With Dmn Editor, we can include the Dmn Editor and also the scenario simulation. Now, here you can see this in action. This, the VSCode code, is our channel. And what is the editor? Let me open this onboarding thing. Onboarding BPMN. You can see this loading. And you can see a visual diagram working naturally inside the VSCode code. You can see here, I destroyed the diagram. And if I close here, see the life cycle of the VSCode code. So this is perfectly fit and looks, is native inside the VSCode code. This will be worked hard with Microsoft in order to finish this. I'm proud that our is the first graphical editor that was released in the store back in the time. So we can have all the editors running inside the VSCode code. Here we can see two visual parts. One is the channel, and inside here is the editor. So the editor, based on the technology of the envelope, the editor doesn't know where it's running. The editor only knows that there is a bunch of APIs that he needs to implement, and also that a lot of APIs that he can consume. For instance, to consume a file or to open a file. This is running inside of the VSCode code. If I go to my browser and I type bpmn.new or dmn.new, you will enter our online editor. This is the proper name for this is Business Online Modular Preview. You can see this tool clicking here. It's keygroup.github.cogito online. But the easiest way to end access is bpmn.new or dmn.new. And you can see here, I will open a sample with Dmn. You see the same example, the same editor running inside this platform, and the editor doesn't know where the channel is running. This is the beauty of the platform. Guilherme's team behind the Dmn editor, they don't realize they only implement the right APIs. For instance, the save button here will save the Dmn for a file. And if you go to the VSCode code, when I do a file save, it's a totally different implementation. But the editor doesn't know the channel where he's running, because we have this type of safe API and multiplier architecture we're able to embed everywhere. And using multiplier architecture, our next goal was to have running on desktop. This is the desktop application, and you can see a desktop channel. Let's use the terminology for multiplier architecture. I open a daemon. Here we can have the same let me load the same editor running here without zero code change running inside a desktop. And imagine that if I go here, you see that the editor is dirty here. It's dirty, which means that edit is edited. And if I need to change this, I will give a warning for the user. But take a look that here, this dirty mechanism is inside a desktop application. Here on the VSCode code is a totally different. See that I will change here. There is this bubble here to do this, prevent this. The editor complies for this type of safe APIs in the different channels without zero change in their code base. And this is what we want to achieve with the multiplying architecture. Also, this is my sweet baby. This is the thing that I'm more proud of. If you go to the Chrome Web Store and search for BPMN on Dmn, we will find our extension. And our extension is installed here in my machine. So you go here, you see the Cogito, place it here. And if you go here, we are able to use the GitHub UI as a channel. What's the advantage of this? I'm able to augment the GitHub interface. See this button? This button is not available on your GitHub. It's only available via Chrome extension. So if you click here, you're able to open that file, see, inside Chrome extension. And I'm able to open this diagram. I will open a daemon to show. See that I changed the visualization of the diagram here, and I'm able to see the diagram inside the GitHub. Why? Via multiplying architecture. The editor doesn't know where it's being rendered. What's the host application? The editor knows that he has to talk with the envelope. An envelope knows how to talk with a channel. This is the beauty of the multiplying architecture. You can put the same editor in multiple environments without changes on the code base. So that another requirement in having no change in the code base. And what's special about this? Why I'm so proud of this? Because if you are working with Dmn or BPMN in practice using GitHub and using the CI/CD, in the end, you will end up with pull requests like this pull request from Thiago Bento. When you go for the file change, you see this huge XML diagram, and you don't know exactly what changed. Here you can see that changed the points a little, but you need to be a little hacker seeing the matrix to understand what is going on. Using multiplier architecture, we are able to implement a channel. The channel is the GitHub UI via Chrome extension, and you add this button here, see as a diagram. When I click here, we will load the editor inside this div. This div is basically rounded by iframe because the CSS of the GitHub UI conflicts with the CSS of the editor, so we have to put a context layer here. And as soon as I open the diagram, here I'm seeing the changes. Let's compare with my original. I will click here. We will load on GitHub the original files, and I'm able to check here what are exactly the changes. And this for me is super cool, and this is the power of the multiplier architecture. So basically you have the same editor running in the desktop, running in the Chrome extension, running inside a web application, and also running inside VSCode code with no change in the code base. So my team in Red Hat, we work with a web infrastructure, with tooling infrastructure. We're actually able to write with multiplier architecture a platform for the other teams, or other web teams in Red Hat, write their own components, their own editors, or their own views. Views is any HTML, CSS, and JavaScript web application, and put them in multiple channels without no change in the code base. Coming back to the slides, This is a recap of what we have using the terminologies. Here we have the BPMN editor in blue running inside a channel. They don't know where it's running. Why? Because we have this technology that we created called envelope that abstract the communication between the channel and the editor. So the editor doesn't know where it's running. The editor doesn't know that they have a typed safety API to consume, to talk with the channel. For instance, to tell the channel that a command happened, to allow the undo redo, or to tell the channel to do a content save, or to do any type of interaction that you want. And you can even go inside the Visual Studio Code. I can have side by side 2 editors open, and you can see here is the same Dmn editor, the same BPMN editor, 2 envelope instances running inside one channel. And the same happens for the Chrome extension channel. We have one BPM editor that is the same editor, the same code that BPMN team in business automation wrote, running inside a Chrome extension in a transparent way. So this abstraction was something that I'm really proud that our team developed. Is like the work of I talk for everyone. That's why it's a pleasure to me to come here. I'm really happy of this result, and we are already receiving a lot of positive feedback on those abstractions. And besides that, I told that I work in a infrastructure team. My team is the foundation team for design tools. Besides the multiply architecture, we actually see the need of multiple features that we developed for the channels. I will quickly talk about those features. The first one was the most important, the most challenging one that, as I told you, before we had doing this work, there is no support for graphical editors natively inside of Visual Studio Code. By natively, I mean to have the same life cycle of is dirty, undo, redo, auto-save, the backup. The backup when you close by accident your Visual Studio Code, and when you open again, the file is on the same state. We are actually be able to do this natively, and I'm really happy with this work. Also, another thing that we developed is like I show you, you can imagine, I open from GitHub online editor, and how online editor are able to fetch a file from GitHub. We write a I/O API, unified API, that abstract multiple APIs inside the channels. Right now we have implemented the GitHub API, the Visual Studio Code API, and the file system API. The other ones are on our roadmap. Google Drive, Amazon S3, and Dropbox, but it's just a matter of implementing the connectors. This is really useful when, for instance, imagine that you have an editor running inside of Visual Studio Code. The work item definitions file is another file. So in order, the editor needs to call in a type safe way, the envelope is say, envelope, I need this custom work item definition. Searching that file on Visual Studio Code is one way. Searching inside the Chrome extension is another way. Searching inside the online editor is a totally different way. So we create an API. That's why the power of the type safety API, able to abstract I/O operation inside our architecture. Also, we provide, as I showed, state control for multiple channels. So as soon as you put an editor there and you inform the envelope that a channel happened, a change happened in the editor, we are able to provide the editor undo and redo mechanism. In each platform, this undo redo works different. Visual Studio Code has their own stack. Online editor we created in our stack, and also in Chrome extensions is totally different. So we are able to abstract and provide this dirty state control API abstract for the channel. So if you write in an editor, it's just a matter of inform the envelope that a command happened, and everything will work magically. We also provide for the editors a typed saved keyboard shortcuts API. What's the challenge here? The challenge is the editors need to have a way to register shortcuts, because there is a lot of shortcuts in the Dmn world, but those shortcuts are platform specific, depending if you run in the browser, or if you run on desktop, or if you're running Linux or Windows or Mac machine. The shortcuts are different. And we want the editors for multiply architecture with no change in the code base. So again, we create an API, a table-safe API, where the editors are able to register their shortcuts in an agnostic way. And as soon as, depending on the channel and depending on operational system, a specific shortcut happens, you do the mapping and inform the editor that a specific action happens. Also, we created for the editors, this is the work done by Guilherme or on Dmn team, a wide editor API able to create nice user-friendly starting points from editor usage. This is also, again, different from each channel. Inside VSCode is one experience, inside the desktop is another one, and inside the online is a different one. So the multiply architecture are able to, without changing the editor, to put the tutorial running as should be in exactly platform. Also, as I told you that I put on online, we created a way to create a gist storage. Let's create a new diagram here. I will show you here. See the undo in action. I will create a sample. Then I want to do some change here, but I want to change. This is an online client-side development, but I want to change this with my friend. I have the option here to gist it. This will create a gist on GitHub API, totally transparent for the editor. And as soon as I have this gist, this is still a client-side storage, but I can share the link with my friends. See, I will open a new browser window, and I will see the same content because we are using GitHub gist as a storage. This is totally cool for us because if you want to share a demo between you and your friends, or you want to show example for your customers, you are a consultant and want to do something, stuff like that. Also, this is a recent work done by Guilherme Caponetto, is that we created a backend services. We created a pluggable infrastructure able to give the editors more features. What's the difference between these? We created this as a pluggable way. This means that any change, the editors work in isolation, but if we install another extension inside of VSCode, we are able to connect between extension and put backend features inside their editor. So for instance, you can redirect the users for some cloud service or some cloud provider to augment the editor experience. And this is a work in progress that Paulo, I hope he's watching. He will kill me after this, that I'm showing this. Paulo is working right now in a way to embed our editors inside any application in a totally transparent way. We are basically, with one line of the code.
Just one comment, sorry to interrupt you. We are not seeing your slides anymore.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. So thank you, Alex. This is the embedded editor. Sorry about this. This is a way that we abstract even more. We abstract the envelope and we abstract the channel, and we will be able to put any editor that complies to multiply architecture in an embedded way inside their applications. This will be a totally cool new feature that will reach soon. This means that besides using our channels here, you can put our envelope inside your own application with just one line of code. And how I create my editor inside multiply architecture is also easy. We create a set of interface. I will quickly run through how to create one. But if you put on this link, I will share this link. I think Karina will share the slides later. And this link has a really nice process, how to do process. And Luis from our team, he's evolving this with a really nice, soon will be a blog post about this, and this will be updated like in this week or in the next week. We'll have a even more completed version of this, how to run your editor. And as soon as you use our interface, we will work in all the channels because we already implemented the channels. For instance, if you create an editor, you have to implement more or less 3 methods. Set content and 2 methods, sorry. Set content and get content. Set content is to put the data in your editor, and get content is to ask the state of your editor. All the other 4 options, get preview, get element position, undo, redo, are options. So how I create my first React editor? I create a simple React component, and this React component will implement this editor. I create the interface first, and the interface have these 2 methods, the get content and the set content, and they contains a React editor. My React editor is a simple text area here. You see, this is the most dummy examples. Luis, you put more nice samples there. So we can have a text area here. This is the most dummy graphical editor. And the second step, so I implement the editor and follow the interface of multiplier architecture, 2 methods only. And I also create the halt. What is the halt? Every time that a channel try to open a text file, I will halt the content for my editor. So when I put text file, I will open my editor inside there. The next step is to create my Visual Studio Code extension. Here I'm using the Cogito APIs. So this is how you start your extension using. You put the name of your editor and put the halter, the halter, and that's it. After that, in 10 lines of code, you can have your editor running inside Visual Studio Code. You see that this is a graphical editor. This looks like a text editor, but this is a graphical one. This is a text area. You can see that I have the life cycle of the Visual Studio Code implemented. And Visual Studio Code is the channel, and the envelope redirect the call for my editors in a transparent way. But putting the Visual Studio Code is already nice, but how I can do this better? The next slide is the code to create a Chrome extension. I will use again the Cogito Chrome extension APIs and put start extension and put, see, that's the same editor code here. I'm using the same simple React editor, the same package with no changes. This is a plumbing for the Chrome extension, and then I have my editor running inside the Chrome in a transparent way. Now all the text files will become a graphical React app. So this is the beauty of the multiplier architecture. You can have your own views and your editors if you implement our simple interface. We do all the lift weight work of placing all the channels, and then you are able to run your code, your editors, or your views transplant on multiple channels. To wrap up this, why do you need a multiplying architecture? Why do you need a new architecture? Because we have to put 3 goals. First is to provide for the business automation group multiple distributions of the same code without no code changes. So they do an editor once, and we on Foundation team are able to create a Visual Studio Code extension, a Chrome extension, a desktop application, embed the application, and also put in a web without changes on the code base. And also, with this, the second requirement for this is to minimize code changes. And also, the third fact is like, as we are putting a TypeScript contract between the channels and the editors, doesn't matter the technology where the editors or the views are written. Could be React, as I showed in demo, could be Git, the GWT, like most of our Canvas editors are, or could be an Angular application, or could be any web technology that we work transplant in this architecture. And this is why I built this. This is why we built this as a team. And I'm pretty happy with the work, and I'm open for the questions. I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation.
Oops, I was muted. Really nice, really nice. I like it a lot. Alex, were you part of this?
Well, I had the privilege to see this getting shape. And that's I have a question to you, Eder. Before getting into details of the architecture itself, tell us a little bit about how your team came up with this architecture, the history behind that.
Yeah, this in short can answer your question because Alex is too humble for this. He is the creator for this, and my team we implement it.
Come on,
And
Alex.
yeah, this
Come
is in
on,
summary,
Alex.
in summary. But the story behind this is that we did a hackathon like last year. It was last year, right, Alex?
Yeah.
Yeah. We bring Paulo and Thiago Bento for Westford here, and then we stay like 15 days just coding and doing this type of renew. We have a room from our leadership in Red Hat in business automation to rethink our tooling architecture. We have one thing that worked really well for our team is the editors. My team was the team that built the business central. That is the web tooling that goes with the RHPN for a lot of years. And you see that talk with the customers, talk with the field, and our impression is that the editors what the real value for the platform. So we come here with the question from Alex, like how we are going to put the editors to run everywhere. This is the first question. And then we have 2 weeks of hackathon to figure out how to put this in the most dirty ways. It's like our first Visual Studio Code extension has more than 1 gigabyte in the demo, in the POC. But we are able to prove the concept. After these 15 days, we have the same editor's code running inside Visual Studio Code, inside the desktop, and also running in the web as a POC. Not fancy like the online editor right now, but just as a POC. But we left this hackathon with these 3 things in mind, that we are actually able to run the editor's code everywhere. And if you run editor's code, we'll be also able to, like I see a question in the forums and task inbox and Dash Builder. In the end, everything is HTML and CSS. And if you are able to run a grid editor inside the omnichannel architecture, our assumption was that we're able to run anything. The second thing we should, how we cannot make the life easier, because I collaborate with like 13 engineers in tooling. And I don't want to be my team don't want to be the team that breaks everyone. So we create this typed safe API, and the second amendment of our architecture is to have typed safe API. This is where we figure out the idea of the envelope. Because in the beginning it was just iframe and a string, and the channel and the editor talking plain string JSONs. And soonish, like in the first month, we realized that this will be really impossible to maintain. It's like to do one change in the channel, I will have to talk in a meeting with the 5 other leads of the tooling teams in business automation. So we decided to go with this code reuse thing, and also with the type. And another thing is that's really important is that this is another thing that I credit for Alex, because Alex and I have big fights, like huge fights. Even the Alex kid.
That means that you're getting the best decisions. Because if you just agree, then
when I go there to Alex's home, I am a friend of Alex child. He told me, I saw you discussing with my father. I said, no. Because one thing that Alex pushed us is to have a client-side only implementation. Like to focus first, to put this as architectural restriction, to have a client-side. I complain a lot because this is like, for the backend guy, this is like, wow, this is make stuff extra harder. Everything become extra harder.
Yeah.
But in the end, this is really nice because this allows us to put the editor's code inside online editor. The online editor that you saw, this business modeler, when you put dmn.new, is totally client-side, and also allow us to put inside the Chrome extension, because we don't have the GitHub running there. We don't have access to the server of GitHub. So we have the omnichannel, the old name, the multiplayer architecture running inside the code, and also now running inside embedded inside the customer's application. So you can have things everywhere with this restriction. And also, the thing that we complain is like this takes some months for us to realize how to deal with this was with the optional backend. Because we put first everything in the client side and said we achieved that. And now let's discuss how to put a backend. And then we figure out how to create optional backend.
But like, can you give an example of how the backend can benefit the tooling?
Yes. For instance, imagine that you have, we have a POC of this working right now, just on POC. You are inside a Dmn application and you want to test your Dmn. In order to test Dmn in Cogito, you have to have a Java backend. Our extension, the editor extension, is totally client-side. So as soon as you install another extension, this another Visual Studio extension, you provide, let's simplify this, you provide a REST endpoint, and the extension, the editor extension, the channel of the editor extension will figure out there is a backend running inside my Visual Studio Code, and then he will connect with this extension and provide a backend. It's basically a remote backend call that happens locally inside Visual Studio Code. But going for online editor, this provided backend, optional backend infrastructure could connect in future. My client-side only online editor with the backend running in any services could be a serverless running in the cloud. So I'm able to do a submit for a cloud, take the result of my BPMN or DMN running, and give you back the result in a transparent way. And this is what we are calling the pluggable backend. And you should invite Guilherme Caponeto to talk about this. He's the one that did the code.
Yeah, and this gives a lot of flexibility and power, right? Because in VSCode, you can have all the traditional IDE features like autocomplete that you consume backend.
The editor? Like you have a BPM, a DMN file, and you have autocomplete?
Yeah, that's what these backend will provide.
This is on POC stage.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah, but
connect
it works.
The backend with the features that you want to fulfill. Like in the end, we will get information from the Java LSP that's running. There's a lot of information that is filled that this editor to augment the experience, but the editor is too fully functional without such a backend. That's very important because you can have the ability to see the same editor in your GitHub extension, in your online. In the online, think that's a free service. We don't, the dmn.new, bpmn.new is free. And it scales unlimited because it's just static pages. So you get there, we have 1,000 users every month, and we have a 0 bill in the end of the month. So that's pretty substantial, I'd say, that give a lot of to our community without paying a huge price for the infrastructure. And Eder, back to the story. I have one comment to make. I remember that we got out together in this room, and the first thing in the morning, the Monday morning, you say, okay, that's what we will do. And I start drawing boxes everywhere. And the team immediately said, no way, we're not.
Yeah, I am the no way guy, always. I am the half empty cup.
Yeah, and they were shocked because there was box for all these channels. And I said, no, and they asked, oh, that's a good concept, but what will you focus? No, you didn't get. That's the focus, to deliver everything. But the team, I know the potential of the team, and the team delivered everything. It was amazing that 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, or at least 18 months, we had exactly the same thing that we are showing today in a 15 days prototype hackathon. That was amazing. It was, of course, very different to what we have now. It's very stable. It's working. But all the concepts were defined there. It was amazing.
Yeah, the funny part of the first POC is that I make sure that when Alex presented this for the Q team, I make sure to Alex, please record a video of this, because there is too much plumbing everywhere. Like, it's like 1 gigabyte of Visual Code in order to run, because in the end, in that time, our editors are not client-side. And we are actually running Business Central with Docker inside Visual Code to understand the type of hacks that it did. But it's cool, and it works in the end.
Nice, pretty good. We are reaching the top of the hour, but we still have a question here from Stathis. So since this is all client side, is there any security considerations around, for example, JavaScript injection?
Security is a complex topic. It's like, because depending on you ask, depending on the question, it has security configuration as any applications. Like, it's everything is JavaScript for sure. Because the most challenge of security is that this runs inside user machine. The editors run in the browser of the user, so we don't have much control of the extensions that the user installed, or the environment of is the browser have some attackers in some clunky way. But in the end, I would say that in the security constraints, if you have backend, you have the same pinpoints for your application, because only if you have a browser interaction that user can edit, you actually need to run something in the browser. So only if you go full server-side rendering, that will not work in our case. Like, there is some JavaScript server-side applications with server-side rendering that you don't have the issue. But I would say that in security constraints, running with the backend generated and editing in the browser and having everything JavaScript, in the security concerns, as I'm not a security expert, they are the same thing. But with the restrictions of multiple issues that can have in the browser of the user. But on the other hand, if you are worried about security, we have a more packed and controlled version, for instance, in the desktop. The desktop is a little harder to change the binaries, and you'll be, for instance, a browser extension will not have extension to Electron, because the Electron application, the desktop, run an empty browser. So it's more safe in a way.
Pretty good, pretty good. Eder, I would like to thank you a lot for being here with us today. Alex, do you have any extra questions for him to wrap up
I
today?
have many, but I don't have time.
We'll have to bring Eder some other day so we can keep on chatting about this stuff. So I have one question, actually. Are you, either of you, planning to write about multiplying architecture in case someone likes the idea and want to reproduce this?
Yes, Alex can say a little about, but there is one important stuff coming. We are in a final review of a big blog post that will be our documentation from Luis Mott. This will be a detailed instructions of how to write your own editors and your own views inside multiplying architecture. Like, it will be a step-by-step process to you to create your simple diagram and go straight to consume our APIs. This will be available on blog.kie.org soonish, and inside also with Cogito tuning examples. If you are hungry to see this, there is a pull request on the Cogito examples with the samples, and I have, if you give me one minute here, I will put in the comment later the examples running. But it's like you'll be in 1 week for now, you have a more even updated documentation.
And I'm also blogging the next week or so about all the concepts of the architecture that Eder covered today, and also will be published on the blog Kie.org.
That is awesome. I have so much lagging here today, and I'm sorry for you that is at home now watching us. This will be fixed by next week, I swear. But Eder, I'd like to thank you again for being here with us today. I learned a lot about our architecture on the Kie tooling project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For inviting.
Sure. hope that you can come again when we
Yes, I will.
invite you again. Nice.
Yeah,
Bye, Eder.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Alex, I was thinking, what are we planning for the next KieLive sessions? Like, can you just give a sneak peek of it? Just talk a little bit about it.
Yes. We are collecting feedback, what the people want to see in this channel. And we got that they want to get introduced to the topics that are more business automation core topics. And we prepare a series of 4 upcoming live sessions that will cover, beginning on business process, the concept and the constructs of BPMN, and then followed by DMN, in another session also for business rules and decisions. And the 4th one will get all these together and show us how business rules, business process, and decisions can work together. That's going to be great.
It is indeed, because still people ask how these tools are evolving in order to fit these new architectures that are coming for the cloud, microservices, event-driven, all these keywords that are coming up in all these conferences. And people simply don't know how to align everything that is up, that is out, along with business, the good business practices that are still in there in the market. So I think it will be pretty exciting. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah. Thank you, Karina. It's going to be amazing. And hope to see all this audience back.
Yes. So thank you, Alex, for being here with me today. And thank you at home. See you next. Bye-bye.